For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from Cape Town, South Africa. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. The Asia-Pacific markets are suffering from two things. First of all, China and Hong Kong still closed, obviously, for the Lunar New Year holiday, and the others really just searching for direction, although Australia has recorded its highest inflation for many years, since 1990, at 7.8%, mainly about car fuel and also food as well. And banks have been trading slightly higher on the back of that, but basically not a great day for stocks, given that rise in inflation in Australia. Taiwan, its president is saying in a note to Pope Francis, actually, that war with China is not an option, and also saying that what Taiwan's after is some sort of constructive interaction with Beijing. Well, of course, China claims Taiwan as part of its own territory, but that's what they're saying at the moment. As far as the United States is concerned, relatively flat, really, as far as the futures are concerned. Microsoft, a bit of a mix here, saved a bit by cloud, but generally speaking, its revenues falling, hit by COVID and so on. But in its guidance ahead was fairly what's being described as lackluster. But however, don't despair too much. US defence stocks obviously doing fairly well over the additional supply of weapons to Ukraine, and more corporate earnings coming up today. Whether or not they will signal a recession or not exactly sure. 65% of them who've reported already have actually reported stronger than expected results, but we're yet to hear from Tesla, Boeing, IBM, AT&T, who will go to post today. And speaking of Tesla, an extra $3.6 billion investment in Nevada, a wish to make batteries there for its new truck called the Semi, and also to gear up to supplying batteries of 2 million cars as well. Department of Justice in the United States has started yet another antitrust suit against Google, this time against ads. The complaint is the usual one, that Google is using its power to keep other people and keep other ad revenue down in its rivals. And it joins the DOJ's second action against, or rather suit against Google, joins the states of California, Colorado, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, Virginia, and also Arizona, which are all joining together. So really, high tech, big tech is actually coming up against the regulators, much as we thought it would. Let's turn our attention to the media, and the reunion between Fox and News Corp is now off, according to Rupert Murdoch. Instead, News Corp is going to pursue a digital commercial property acquisition, which they're invested in as well. Shareholders felt that the joining together of News Corp and Fox would not give them as much money as the separate companies would. So at the moment, that reunion is off the table. Global shipping. Now, it's a good indicator, this really, of what's actually going on. What's finding out it's being hurt by weak demand for China goods. It's putting damper on the expected economic boost that China may eventually give. Cancellation levels, apparently amongst cargoes, are exceptionally elevated, as the shippers put it. So that index actually showing that less shipping going on as would be hoped globally. Argentina, now we've been talking about that, haven't we? Of course, they won the World Cup, and their finance minister Sergio Massa has been saying that despite what you feel about Argentina, gas and mining boom is about to happen. They've started to export gas to Chile. They will be exporting a bit more to Brazil, and they are going to be mining lithium and other rare metals as soon as they can. And according to the finance minister, it's likely that they will be repaying the debt that they have accrued from various donor countries. Let me take you to the EU and the Eurostar, the express train that runs from London to Paris. 30% less passengers. Basically, what they're blaming are the post-Brexit checks, bottlenecks at stations, and so on. They used to run 18 trains to Paris. Now they just run 14 because of that, and so their revenues on passengers are actually down. UK, Amazon starts its first British strike. The workers, the GMB union, says workers are actually facing worse conditions than the robots do in their factories. So that's about to GMB union. That's about to happen. And of course, they won't be unminded in the fact that that's what's happening in the United States as well. So union power beginning to grow in Amazon. The workers there don't like being measured hour by hour, which includes their lavatory breaks as well. UK debt is growing, record high now, record 30-year high, not totally unexpected given the actual help that the government is actually pushing out towards energy costs as well, plus the weakness in the economy, which is something which the Office of Budget Responsibility have been noting. They've been saying there's been a decline in forecasts now to 0.5% growth next year, when it's reckoned to be much higher than that. So a shallow recession, but lasting much longer is the view from them. And finally, oil, momentum now starting to fade. I did say yesterday there was a bit of exhaustion, as it was put, from traders thinking that China's rapid return to the markets would bring up the demand for oil. It isn't happening yet, but it's still feeling as though the momentum is beginning to run out. Running on fumes is how one market trader put it this morning. That is the global view.
Real quickly, Michael, I think I'd like to go back to Madam Liz Truss and Kwesi Kwarteng, which happens to be my West African compatriot here. Isn't the game of economic Teddy Pika they played in the space of a week or a month, hasn't it destroyed the UK so much now that the interest rates that went up since then on the UK debt keeps going up? And that's why I asked the question again, Michael. How much did the bank, the central bank in the UK, the Bank of England, pay to guide the gilt markets? Because all of these increases can be linked to what happened between Madam Liz Truss and Kwesi Kwarteng and the game of economic Teddy Pika they were playing.
Yeah, no question it did. I mean, whatever you think about that hiatus in financial orthodoxy, put it like that. I mean, some people would say unfunding tax cuts and the rest of it. Yes, certainly it did. And certainly the bank came in and spent billions trying to put the markets to bed. In fact, the government may have made a slight profit on that. But again, given the OBR's current projections now, I think that's probably out of the window. And the budget, which is coming up in March, will be incredibly tough. I just think, generally speaking, that putting the country back on the road again was fine, whilst Sunak appeared to be the knight in shining armour. Now, of course, given the various scandals around Tory party chairman and so on, that clearly isn't the case. I think that's politics. Again, I'm not a political expert, but I would put it down to that. I think that things are going to be very, very tough indeed. I think it's the debt figures right now. It doesn't really matter what was spent then. The debt figures going forward are going to be a big drainer, a big drag, a big headwind for the economy. And even though the OBR rather is reducing its forecast, it's still saying it'll be a shallow recession, but it is saying that it probably will last longer, all through next year, as far as I can see.
So let's talk about what's going on at Amazon. So later on today in Coventry, Amazon in Coventry in the UK, about 300 workers are said to be going on strike. I mean, in the past, Amazon has been quite hostile to unions. We discussed what happened in New York just a few weeks back, about a week or two ago, and now in the United Kingdom. And this time it's over pay rise. Last year, Amazon increased the pay of their starting workers by 50 pence to be about 10.50 to 11.45 pounds 45 pence. The UK's minimum wage is £9.45. I believe it's £9.50. And they're looking to increase in April of this year. They're going on strike this year. Amazon is adamant. What's the future for not just Amazon, but other tech companies? We've heard, we've had reports of layoffs in recent times. What's the overview in that sector?
I don't know how unionised the other tech companies are. I mean, that's the difference, isn't it? You heard Google employees were saying, well, "Why me? I mean, what criteria have you used to lay me off amongst the 18,000 or 12,000, whatever the figure will eventually turn out to be that they're actually laying off?" I think that what's happening with with Amazon rather, is that the workers don't like every single minute of every single hour being surveyed by the management, and even the amount of time that they spend in the laboratory, going to the laboratory and coming back, is deducted from the amount of work that they do during the day. They simply don't like that kind of supervision. I mean, you're right about the minimum wage, but the fact of the matter is it's now unionised, and it's now something which Amazon is going to take hold of, and it will reduce the share price. There's no question about that. But Amazon can afford it. Amazon will just have to learn the way, and certainly I think that learn the way of unions. And certainly I think that that judgment in the United States on Staten Island warehouse will certainly be ringing very, very hard in the ears of the GMB as they go on strike today.
Well, Michael, two quick things. The bulletin of the atomic scientists has now moved the doomsday clock close to midnight, 90 seconds to midnight, they say, and you know that this is a global threat. And the reason for this is, of course, the build-up in Ukraine. Germany and Poland are sending, support for Ukraine. The US is sending Abrams tanks. The UK is sending Challenger vessels. Germany is sending Leonard tanks and all of that. And this bulletin of the atomic scientists says, well, this is a global threat. Are the markets responding yet in the same manner in which they responded immediately to the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis? Or the markets are just still watching whether there will be a blowout this year or not, with Putin threatening nuclear strikes? And then the second point has to do with the prediction by Bill Gates in Australia, I think on Monday or yesterday or so, that it's better to be born 20 years from now than at any time ever in the past. He's very optimistic about the future of mankind, despite all the devastating scenarios that the world faces. Are you optimistic about the future? Or you think this our world is truly 90 seconds to midnight?
Well, I think we're all in a better place than we were 100 years ago in terms of health and longevity. And whilst there are still people starving in the world, I feel as though it is moving to a slightly better place, notwithstanding the war in Ukraine. As far as the scientists, I mean, I'm neither optimistic nor pessimistic. I am. What's the word? I believe it when I see it. It's like religion, really, isn't it? It's like a lot of people say, well, I may as well pray, but I'm not exactly sure of the existence of God. Agnostic, I think, is the word. So I'm agnostic about the future. As far as forecasting and Armageddon is concerned with the scientists, well, good luck to them. I think that forecasting is a very, very difficult business. They may be right, who's to know? But do they know more than we do? Suspect not.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much indeed. Now for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Udiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers.
Good morning. Let's say hello to you properly. Hello, Mr. Davos. Welcome back.
Thank you.
This
It's a warmer climate here, much more accommodating.
What did you bring?
What did I bring? I brought good tidings.
Implications.
Oh, I brought good tidings.
Davos implications.
Well, no, look. I mean, you've touched on it. I mean, the Central Bank of Nigeria, surprising markets really. If you had asked me yesterday what they were going to do, I would have said they would hold rates constant at 16.5, but they raised it to 17.5. If you look at the parameters, everything else was kept in place. So 17.5 benchmark rates, the asymmetric corridor minus 100 basis points to plus 700. And then you've got
plus 100 minus 700.
Plus 100 minus 700. Thank you, Doctor. And then you've got the CR 32.5, and then the cash reserve ratio at 30%. So that's what we are. Yeah. So those are the figures right there. So yeah, plus 100 minus 700 basis points around the asymmetric corridor, and then you've got those figures. So the thing is, look, borrowing rates are still they're climbing, and it's going to get more expensive to get loans. And if you look on the secondary side, if you're going to get a loan from a commercial bank or a microfinance bank, you're looking at 28, 30+%. So this is, I mean, they're still fighting inflation. As far as inflation is concerned, yeah, we saw it inch downwards, a smidgen, but we still have, you know, excess of 21.34 for December. So that's that. And in Naira notes, you touched on that extensively. The central bank says they're not going back on it. We were given 100 days to deposit our own money into our own accounts. That's basically the timeline we're given. Take your own. If the CBN had given an incentive of 10 Naira for every 1 Naira for every 10 Naira you deposit to your account, I'm sure people would have rushed to the banks to go and make their deposit. So I don't know why people are panicking. Take your money, go and deposit it. The issue though is the hinterlands, the rural areas, and they've started a cash swap scheme where they'll be giving cash to their agents. They've got about 1 million or 1.4 million around the country, which will be going to the rural areas to essentially swap the cash. You've touched on the National Assembly asking for a 6-month deadline. CBN says that is not going to happen. But ways and means, what do we do about ways and means? We keep going on about the law. If you borrow someone, if you lend somebody money and you give them parameters and they break the parameters, you can wave the parameters in their face and say you broke the agreements you made. But the debt is still there, and the debt has to be paid one way or the other. So if you're saying you can't issue promissory notes, you can't securitize the debt, you must pay back in a financial year, the 22 trillion is still sitting on the ground staring at all of us in the face, and the money has to be paid off one way or the other. So at this point, probably the law has to be, that ship has sailed, that horse has left the stable, and something has to give. The money has to be paid back. If not, look, there is a trial that just started in England. Was it not yesterday or the day before? That PNID trial, where Nigeria is on the hook for $11 billion. Now, whether it was a scam or not, it happened during the Jonathan administration before the Buhari administration came into power over that gas agreement. If Nigeria has to pay that $11 billion, that is 1/3, 30% of our FX reserves. So that is still sitting in one corner. So it is really apparent. It is really, you know, we need to do something about this debt, this 22 trillion of ways and means. And repeating the fact that you are breaking the law doesn't get any of us anywhere. What is the solution? Speaking of solutions, I know you have a response, but give us a solution. Huh? The Abuja Kaduna rail line apparently is grounded because there's no diesel.
No,
this is one of the most bizarre delayed. But Ayo, diesel is deregulated. The only thing that has moved is the price. So, you know, look, these rail lines have been delayed because of terrorist attacks. They've been delayed because their price points are not realistic. You buy tickets physically. There's no electronic way to do it. It's a simple revenue and expenses thing. If you're not moving volumes of rides up and down, and if your price points are not realistic, you cannot afford to pay for diesel that is up by 300% or so year on year. So, and anyway, I don't want to get into the blue rail that we just inaugurated yesterday. Look, finally, look at today's headlines. There are political aspirants, leadership aspirants who keep making promises after promises. Look at this day. I think it's, what has Mr. Efele call it? Below the masthead, Atiku, I'll change our security architecture and I'll grow the economy. Tinubu, I'll end youth frustration in Nigeria if elected. The security architecture is technology because you have to increase surveillance in order to be able to respond quickly enough. You are not manufacturing that technology in-house, so you're going to have to import it. So for you to change your security architecture, you are basically, that is an FX charge on the country because you have to import whatever security you're going to use to improve your surveillance, and then maybe train people to be able to do that, maybe increase your security force. That's all more money. That is on Atiku's side. Mr. Tinubu was in Abia State a couple of days ago saying that he was going to turn Abia into a manufacturing hub and he's going to boost their manufacturing exports. This is one state. The Manufacturing Association of Nigeria over and over again has said power, foreign exchange, and interest rates are the reason why manufacturing is not moving ahead in Nigeria. How is that going to be addressed? So you know, there's no discussion on innovation. In fact, speaking of innovation, let me show you a machine I saw while I was in Switzerland. This very funny looking Swiss butter machine. Yeah. So this machine, when you're having breakfast, is in a hotel room. You push a button. I hope we have the video. You push a button, and a piece of butter falls on your plate when you get breakfast, where your bread is, it's on an unnecessary machine, right? Because in the same area where you're having breakfast, you can just simply grab a piece of butter and put it in. But they have lights, right? So they have electricity constantly, and they're able to just sit down and think of new things to make and to manufacture. Okay, it's a shame we don't have the video, but I'll probably show it to you tomorrow. Innovation is what we need. As far as your technology, your manufacturing hub, your whatever promises that need to be made, since the election is so close, we really need to have an innovation discussion, and we're not having it right now.
So let me go to ways and means.
Solution, or how do you solve the
Wait, Rotus now, wait.
Yes.
See, this is ways and means. We have broken all the laws possible.
Yes, I agree.
According to the books.
Yes.
But the solution they have put forward is also pushing the evil day forward. But let me tell you this. The solution, the ideal solution,
yes,
will have been allowing us to bite the bullet. Probably when we pay those high interest rates, like the president talked about in his speech, when we pay once or twice, we'll learn not to do that again. But we know there are going to be dire consequences. So like I said on this show, we will concede for them to break the law further. Maybe the president has told the National Assembly, the rubber stamp National Assembly to go ahead and securitize. Those ones will securitize it very soon.
So we're in agreement now.
Wait, see, I'm coming.
Okay.
But it doesn't make it the right solution. We will concede for them to break the law further. You know, when Yoruba say Dasi Elara,
leave it.
We've just poured it on your body. But we know what you're doing is wrong.
Right.
But we just have to concede for them because do we have an impute? The National Assembly is rubber stamp. They will do it very soon. It's just a matter of, and all the government agencies have talked about it. Moving on. Infrastructure, there goes infrastructure.
Yeah.
When we do infrastructure, we don't plan through it, we don't think through it. Things like diesel become a problem. I think moving forward, it is time we have to bite the bullet. We have to look at ways how to decentralize, if possible. Privatize the NRC. The NRC, Nigerian Railway Corporation, is not fit for purpose.
I agree.
They can't effectively run all these lines.
Facts, I agree.
Bring private sector in, privatize it. People will have to adjust to the rates, set benchmark quotas, look at it, how it's going to work.
Ticket prices have to go up.
The ticket price will definitely go up.
Have to go up.
So it's going to be survival of the fittest. Those that can compete will compete. But that's the effective way to. If you continue to allow NRC run it, it's going to be tokenism. We are going to keep having stops and things like that. But NRC running, they have to put everything in place, put security in place, put infrastructure in place. You talked about rejigging security architecture and political promises. Some of them, Rotus, can be done inside. See, I'm doing a research now that shows that reportage, having a mechanism for constant reportage alone can reduce security incidences by over 20 to 30%.
Okay, that sounds plausible.
There are a lot of young Nigerians developing those apps for reportage and monitoring now. It might not be holistic surveillance. Take them in the room and use them. Make your Nigerian whiz kids work for this country. They are there. Go and find them. Formerly, we had something called Ideas Hub that was run by the government. I used to be a mentor on Ideas Hub.
Yeah.
We should have more of that to be able to discover those talents within. Then the ones we can buy overseas, we buy from overseas. That's your butter machine.
Oh, okay, there it is. Okay, so fine. There's the machine now.
Right.
So you can see.
Just one point, I'll just say.
Wait, hold on. I want you to take a look at this thing. That's
the butter.
Do you push the button, right? And then it is so useless, but still, like I said, if you have lights, you have ideas. Go ahead.
Lack of infrastructure continuously stifles innovation.
Right.
How can you innovate in a nation where you're thinking of how to power up your business? There's no time because what's on ground is not even enough or is not sufficient enough for you to do business in an enabling environment. And so for the man who invented that useless butter machine, there was a lot of time on his hands because he's not thinking of queuing on for fuel, thinking of how to make business sense so that he makes profit because prices have gone up in terms of running his or her business. And so if we must innovate as a nation, we must provide an enabling environment for young people to thrive without thinking of things to distract.
And by the way, sorry, Doctor, right before you come in, I just mentioned the interest rate at 17.5%. We still do not have, as far as I know, any solution from the candidates on how to bring interest rates down to where borrowing can be easier. Doctor, please go ahead.
Talking about innovation, my favorite scholar on the subject is Peter F. Drucker, who says, innovate. If you don't innovate, either as an individual or as a business or as a country, you know,
You're
you'll be
finished.
left behind
Yeah.
because we're in the age of constant innovation and entrepreneurship. But to talk about the Nigerian Railway Corporation, when the NRC decided to suspend the Warri-Itakpe line as a result of the train derailing somewhere in the forest, I said, look, it's the Nigerian Railway Corporation itself that should be suspended. Because what is happening with the NRC is complete embarrassment. When the federal government decided on December 5 to reopen that Abuja-Kaduna train line, there was no promise that the Minister of Transportation did not make. He said they are taking every possible measure and all of that. But what we're seeing here is what looks like, you know, lack of complete preparedness with implications for business, for persons who patronize these train services that they provide. However, in this particular case, the explanation that I put out with regard to diesel shortage was that the diesel that they got was substandard after it was submitted to laboratory tests. Well, that doesn't sound quite convincing to me. Why is it that today is terrorism, next tomorrow is derailment, next tomorrow is attack on train station? We're just not ready.
At all. Not at all.
So if we're not ready, don't let us keep ridiculing ourselves. Train services run smoothly in other parts of the world. So it's not rocket science that is involved. Now, the other issue that you raised, you were saying, oh, the CBN and the federal government, they've broken the law. If they have broken the law, then let us leave that and then try to find solution. No, that's not the principle.
Okay.
Government is expected to operate under the rule of law. When government breaks the rule of law, breaks the law, government puts all of us in trouble. That's the principal argument in how government breaks the law. Jethro Lieberman. You know, and what we find in Nigeria is that people are constantly breaking the law, and because of the kind of suggestion you make that, okay, if you break the law, let's move on and look for a solution. Then people will have the incentive to think that they can always break the law and get away with it. You will recall that the DG of the Debt Management Office said, look, with this 22 trillion, if you don't securitize it, the interest on it will go up. And by June, we will be saddled with 77 trillion. By the time you add promissory notes, you add other, you know, debts that have been incurred. Who is going to bear that burden of 77 trillion?
We will.
We will bear the burden.
We will.
Okay, so, I mean, we can't say you can break the law and get away with it. There must be sanctions for bad behavior.
Yes.
When people use the machinery of government to break the law.
Agreed. But, Doctor, how do we pay off the money?
Well, let them do a public hearing. In the statement that I quoted earlier on this program, what's his name?
The debt management.
Adebayo,
Yes.
Tilewa Adebayo.
Yes.
He said, look, one of his recommendations, hold a public hearing, let the experts come and help you out of it. Don't be a rubber stamp National Assembly and say you've broken the law, we have securitized it, let us move on.
Exactly, the money has been spent. The money is
Let us
gone.
securitize it. It's still a proposal.
Yeah, but Doctor, the securitization, Rufai read the law here. The law does not allow for securitization. It doesn't allow for...
Section 38, 3B.
Right.
But the CBN Act
does not allow. So that's the thing. If you're saying you can't promise, you can't securitize, you can't promissory notes, what do you do? That's the point I'm
Don't
making.
worry, they've caused the problem.
So they will fix it.
Okay, thank you, Rotis.
Thank you.